Now we're going to install a set of Dakota digital gauges for a nice clean look. I must remove the 4 1/2-inch nuts for the turn signals to do this. Just let the turn signals hang there. Next, you will remove the 6 T25 torque screws. After removing the 6 T25 bolts or screws, then to remove the fairing, you actually have to kind of lift up on the fairing because it hooks right on top of the headlight. And then you will have to disconnect your headlight, and there you go. Now that we removed the outer fairing, let's get started. Whichever gauge you take out, fuel gauge, it's just all the same gauge in the exact same spot. And depending on the year of your bike, 2008 and up will need calibration of the fuel gauge. And it comes with new nuts to install. And on this kit, we're doing away with the stock air temperature gauge, and we are installing an oil temperature gauge in its place. And you'll notice I am not reconnecting the power and ground wire to the actual light bulb. On the new digital Dakota gauges, it comes with a new harness to allow you to hook up the lights to it.
Get this thing going rolling on the quarter.
All right. There we go. Now we'll move on to the speedometer and tachometer. All right, you will first remove the 2 screws on each side of the speedometer. And this right here just pops out. Like that. You can just push that connector back. I like to do one at a time, that way I make sure I get the plug back in the right gauge. Slip the gauge right in there. And you will use the stock screws. Plug it in and do the same to the other side. Plug that in. Now we're going to install the oil temperature sensor for the oil temperature gauge. And we're going to be removing this 5/16 Allen out of the oil pan. And that will be where your sensor is going to now go. Now we're going to install the sensor. And that is a 3/4 inch nut on there. We are now going to route the wiring for the sensor for our oil pressure gauge, or oil temperature gauge, I'm sorry. And I do it on the right side of the bike and go down right beside the transmission cover underneath and just right to the sensor on the oil pan. After you get it routed where you want, just use a few zip ties and zip tie it to the rest of the harness. Keep it up out of the way. After you get it zip tied, you will now remove the top plastic cover of the wiring harness. Now that you got that out of the way, just route it right inside the plastic there. And I'm going to come out of the left side and make it closer to the oil temperature gauge. Just find your little opening going through here underneath the fairing and fish it through. On the air temperature plug, you're going to remove the blue violet and the black wire from the housing. You'll do that by using a little pick and just pushing down that tab on the inside. All right. And in place of the blue violet cavity, you're now going to insert the red wire of your wiring harness for your oil temperature sensor. And of course the black will go where the black. And then you'll insert the black where you remove the black for the ground. And then it's got another black coming out of it you're just going to take and you're going to connect your ground that you removed, just plug them in together. And then you'll plug that into your gauge. And now we're just going to plug it in right here. This is the wire that provides the background lighting for all the gauges that I'm installing right now.
Uninsurmountable. Got it?
All right. And we're going to route it through the nacelle, and then we're going to go through the inner fairing so we have all the wires nice and hidden. And now we're going to connect each of these to the back of our gauges. And you're ready to pop this back in place. Reinstall the screws. Now we're installing the key switch. Now we're going to install a Dakota digital totally hidden antenna. And we're going to wire up this 12-volt power source to an orange wire. Put it right there. Now I'm going to wire in the 12-volt power source to the 12-volt power source on the bike, which is the orange wire. Wireless or hidden antenna. And there we go. We got our power source. And now we can check them. Yes. Before we put the fairing on.